And we're live. How's it going? How's it going tonight, guys? I'm not gonna be able to do it. I was just gonna start it off real quick. Tonight, our special guest is Ashley Williams, the founder of Legacy Farms Missions and owner of Legacy Farms Coffee, head roaster, and backpacker. So, welcome in.
All right, thanks, Eli. It's a pretty good intro. Somebody moved one of my chairs, so we only had one chair. And we're still hodgepodging some of the cables. The internet company is supposed to come out and finish up our lines. And hopefully we'll be a little more organized on the, I think it's going to be Saturday podcast. We're actually going to do a podcast this Saturday. We're going to do it on the phone, and so we'll be moving around a little bit. But I'd like for you guys to actually see some of the people. We'll get to say hi to a few people. Thanks, E. That as they come up the hill and they're weighing in their coffee, stuff like that. And we'll say hi to a few of the guys that I know y'all know, Anna, Bahidio, Santos. They've taken a few until our English teacher quit. They were all taking some lessons. So they've all got some basic English. Hi, how are you doing? Stuff like that. We've got a dentist coming. I say he's a dentist. I'm not 100% sure he's a dentist. He's coming in 2 weeks. We started picking again on Monday. We haven't had that great a turnout for picking, so I'm a little nervous about that. That's what made me decide tonight that I was going to talk about some of the immigration stuff. We're going to do that later on in the program. I've got to answer a couple questions first, but because of the problems we're having, and then I see some of the problems you guys are having. If you can believe anything you see online, which, I believe everything I see online. But I posted a picture the other day, and I did a sugar test, which we do sugar tests all the time. And those of you guys who know Full with Wine and stuff like that, I'm pretty sure the cupping of coffee got started from the wine, because it's very similar to how you would cup wine or taste wine. But the refractometer, and that's what we call it, I'm guessing that's right, is how we test the sugar. And so I posted on there that I had a really good coffee the other day. The high side was like 25 or 26, and but the average was 23. And so that's, for us, that's a really great sugar. So I posted that, and somebody was asking, or a couple of people asked, what are you talking about? And so we test the sugar because we have the farm broken into lots. So there's what we call them zone, because lots get confusing. So we've been trying to make that change over the last few years, and a few of them are hard pressed to change. But we have zone 1. Zone 1 is all Impera, so we just call it zone 1. Zone 2, there's a zone 2L, which is a little bit of Impera, and then there's a barbed wire fence that separates zone 2I, which is some Ica 2. Currently, I had 1,000 plants left over one time, so we went in, and there's a zone 2P, which is some Perinema. Last year, I think we put another 1,000 out there with it, so it's getting bigger. But some of the different zones there's a zone 5B and a zone 5M. That's Bourbon, that's Marciesa. So we separate them. But what's happening on Monday is we try to figure out a big fat lot to get the people in. A few people will come in on Monday. The families will send 1 or 2 people in. And if it's good picking, then the whole family will come on Tuesday. If it's not, they leave. And so you're just holding the bag. So which is sort of what happened. They didn't like the picking on Monday, so we only had a few people come in today or Tuesday. So we had less people on Tuesday, and then today we had even less because it was raining. So the way we make the decision is twofold. We need to get them a big fat lot so that we get the people in here. And then because it takes 2 weeks to pick, we have to we have to try to keep them. So if you do all your big fat lots first, then they won't come back the next week. So we do a fat lot on the first day or two, then we do some skinny lots to try to get them to come back. It might seem manipulative, but we got to keep them in here because they have zero loyalty. They'll just leave and go somewhere else. When we first started in coffee, these guys would pick until they were finished. It was bean to bean, first bean to the last bean. The generation that we've got now is going to go pick at the fattest farm for the big picking, and then the next week they're going to go to the next fattest farm. So every farmer is sort of having that same trouble. But we take that refractometer and we do a sugar test. And so that'll tell us, try to do them on Sundays, but a lot of times it's hard to do it on Sunday. But for sure, we'll do it on Saturday and figure out what lots have the highest sugar. And so those lots are ready to be picked. So then Monday, that's where we're going to start picking. So we'll find out what the biggest, fullest lot with the best sugar, and that's where we're going to start picking on Mondays. So that's what we did this week. The best lot was Marciesa, and so we started in that. And I think that we picked I think it was 45 quintal, which is 4,500 pounds on Monday of that Marciesa. I don't have my calculator, but if you guys will divide 4,500 into 8.25, that tells you how many pounds of roasted coffee you'll get from 4,500 pounds of picked coffee, just on an average. That's not always perfect. But to answer the question, that refractometer is what you use to gauge the sugar. And then we keep track of that. Excuse me. So if we have a coffee that cups really high, we go back and we check the weather. We checked how we fermented it. We check what the sugar was. We check all those different items so that we can sort of try to repeat that process. Make sure we're broadcasting out on. Yep, it's going out on Facebook. And if anybody out there is wanting to jump on, I was hoping Bill. They've got church tonight, so he might jump on later. It just seems like it's always better when Bill, Richard, some of those guys jump in. We always get some good questions. But the bus thing, we were just sitting around the other night, and we do something that a lot of farms don't do. And I'm not just trying to pat myself on the back, but I had a guy come up to me, and he owns a big farm and a big mill, and he has a big deal in the church. And he told me one time, he said, I saw you driving through town. And I'm like, I said, yeah. And he's like, you had a bunch of workers in the truck with you. And I said, yeah, it was raining a little bit. And he said, you have to let them ride in the back. He said, buy them some plastic. All the little fettuccarias here, which is like a construction store, like a miniature Lowe's. They all sell black plastic, clear plastic. He said they need to ride in the back because they need to know that level. They need to know that separation. And he used levels, but the rich don't want to be around the poor. They want to keep that, that level. So for years, they wouldn't come knock on my door. They'll stand out in front of the house, 30, 40 feet out in front of the house and whistle or, say something or make a noise. They won't come up and knock on my door. And so I started this plan where we're going to get to know them and we're going to let them know. And, a couple of times I've said, the Bible doesn't say there's, one person's better than others, a soul is a soul. And so it actually says it's hard for the rich man to get in. But so I didn't like that, and I've never liked that. And so, I've had Eli and I last year, there was like 16 women in here selecting coffee. So we were in the house and we were going to make them breakfast, and then the electricity went out. So we had to run out here on the gas stove and cook breakfast. Men don't cook, men don't clean, men don't take the dishes up. They just don't do that here. And so the women were just watching us cook. And the fact that I knew how to cook, and so we made them breakfast. And that's something Eli's already mentioned he wants to do when Mom and John leave here pretty soon, or Jonathan. I don't like calling him John. When they leave, we're going to make a big breakfast one morning for all the ladies that are selecting. but like Santos has been in the house and eating breakfast. Tomorrow morning he's coming by. He's guarding tonight. So I said, I'll be out here at 5. Come out. Let's eat breakfast together. Because he's got to be at work at 7. I've got to leave here at 6:15 to go pick up workers. So we'll eat breakfast together, and I'll cook breakfast a little bit before 5 and have it out here so we don't wake everybody up in the house. So we'll sit here and eat breakfast. But we were out here the other day, and I've seen a lot of the buses come through, and we've talked about them quite a bit. And I've mentioned it a little bit online. But they were talking the other day, and in our area, which is, they sort of know they walk, and so they don't get out and drive around like you and I would. So I'm going to be in Wichita, and I'm going to be in McPherson, if anybody knows exactly where I live. But because we travel, and we travel great distances in our cars, their little world is sort of where they walk to. And so they were saying that between Planis and Florida, there's been 4 people. There's been 8 deaths this year, and it's February, because we're in a foggy area and people drive like maniacs. 4 of those deaths were like motorcycles, whatever, but 4 of them were people that got run over by the immigrant bus or buses. Yesterday, I saw 4 I drove from Planis to here. It's like 8 miles, and I met 4 buses. It's crazy. Anna said the last time, and let me explain this first. I'll never get through the story. If you're fat, they call you gordita. If you're black, they call you negro. It's not a racial thing. It's not a judgment thing. If you're fat, you're fat. If you're black, you're black. And Anna was describing, and she's got the biggest heart, greatest person, doesn't have a racial bone in her body, but she was describing the people on the bus that they saw on Sunday when they were in town. And she said they were all very black, and they had the little short curly hair. And so she's most likely describing somebody she said they didn't speak any kind of language that she knew. She said it wasn't English, it wasn't Spanish. I don't know what they were saying. So she's probably describing somebody from the Africa or somewhere in that area. And they weren't doing it as a bad thing. The last time we had a little meeting, Pedro was saying everybody there, they're only allowed to get off the bus in certain spots because you do not want to violate immigration law in Honduras. You go to jail, simple. And so they're allowed to pass through here in their little caravans, but they can only get off in certain spots. One of those spots happens to be Planis. So Pedro is describing a few months back when he saw them come out. And he said, he calls me Don Ashley. He said, Don Ashley, they're the poorest people. They couldn't afford hats. So they had towels wrapped around their head. This is a guy that doesn't have a smartphone, doesn't have internet, finished the 5th grade. He's not a worldly man. He was describing these people honestly. And he said they didn't have any clothes. They just wore bed sheets. So you can guess whoever they're describing. And I'm not trying to get into a political thing. This is all leading somewhere coffee related. Currently, I have 85,000 coffee plants that I desperately need to get picked. Today, when they were dumping coffee into the tank, there was dried up black coffee. It's just not going to be our best season. I need 125 people tomorrow picking my coffee. And today, I think we had 23 people show up. Yesterday, there was 30-something. Monday, there was 20-something. So Monday's usually slow. Tuesday gets better. But because of the weather today, nobody wanted to pick. So they didn't show up. I need 125 people. I need Jonathan in there still pulping right now. I think it took him about 45 minutes to finish this pulping today. If I have 125 people picking, I will load my big old NQR Isuzu cab over truck and I will take it out to the drying field. But if I have 15 people picking, I'm still got to load that same truck up and drive to the same field. It's an hour and a half. If I just go out there and turn and come back, it's an hour and a half drive, 16 miles. So it's a rough road. It's a hard road. The big truck didn't get very good mileage. So it's a huge waste of our time. It takes 2 to 3 times longer to pick the coffee. And your whole life is devoted to picking up workers, dropping off workers, taking coffee to Yano, coming back from Yano, taking workers home, drying the coffee, getting the truck loaded for the next day. And, just because you don't have enough workers. And that is two problems we're having. There was a little house right up the road from us, and it was just a regular old basic adobe house. And then all of a sudden one day they started building this big retaining wall in front. And the next thing you know, they're building a fence all the way around it. And then they're adding on to it. They built a giant porch, and you're just looking at all these things happen. And these were people that we vaguely knew. They came and picked for us, but they weren't real social. And then I said, why aren't they picking? And they're like, well, they don't work anymore. And so I'm like, well, okay. And I didn't think to question it any further. So I just said, okay. So what happened was, then the next thing I noticed, they got 2 Range Rovers in their yard. And then they had a Rubicon in their yard. And so I'm like, well, what's going on? And they're driving really nice vehicles. And they're like, well, they've got one kid that's working in Spain as like a nanny or something. And they got another kid in the United States. And they're sending money back. So now the family doesn't have to work. And so they had 3 boys that used to pick for us, and the dad used to pick for us. And now they don't do anything. The kids drive motorcycles. The parents have cars. They've got a nice house, but they don't work anymore. And so you say three grown kids, 15 to 25 years old, and a dad, they would probably pick 700 or 800 pounds of coffee a day, just that one family. Yesterday we picked, 4,500 pounds of coffee. So, a lot of those were women, things like that, and women tend to pick less, men tend to pick more. So that's one of the things. The other thing is just the sheer lack of people. The people in the church, there's like way less people in the church what used to be. And they're leaving. They're going to the United States. And so it's not a unique problem just to me, but we're losing thousands of dollars worth of coffee because of the poor quality, because they can't pick at the right time. So we're going to have to do more hand selecting. We're having to pay way more than what we've paid in the past to have people pick. And they're only going to pick the best of my farm, and then they're going to go. And so if there's a day where the lot that they're in, every coffee tree has to be addressed. You have to look in there and you might pick 10 cherries or you might pick 100. But there's going to be days when there's some lots that either aren't ready to be picked, and we still have to go through there and take what we can get, because by the time we come back again, that coffee is going to be either rotted or fallen off the vine or so dry that we can't use it. So it has to be done. But we're just in a huge mess, because there's busloads of people from, and some of them are from here, but they're going to the United States. I can only, imagine that. I know every farmer I've talked to here is having the exact same problem. I talked to Alexander today, and he said, yesterday he had 4 people picking coffee. So, or that's what he had Monday. So then yesterday his wife took off so that she could go pick. So she lost her wages here and put us in a little bit of a bind, because she handles the weighing and all that, because she had to go pick at her own farm because they can't find anybody to pick. And our deal with any of our workers that have a farm is, you pick your farms, y'all coordinate, and you pick on the 2 weeks when we're not picking. So it's always worked out in the past, except for now when you can't find workers. They're not able to pick their farm in a day or two. So they're having to pick with 4 workers, and it's taking them a week or two. Santiago's not here. Pedro's not here because they're out picking their own crops because they can't find anybody to help them. Herbert's the same way. Herbert said that a lot of his drivers and bosses in his wet mill went to the United States, and they know they have somewhat of a skill, or they know how to drive, or because a Honduran license is valid in the United States. So if they can get to the United States, legal or not, they are legal to drive a car, and if they know which states to go to where they're not going to be bothered. So if they show up at a construction site and they know how to drive a dump truck, and they know basic construction, they're going to get a job pretty easy. They're going to be making a lot more than they're making here. And I can't fault them for that. I sure can't blame them for that. But it's causing a whole lot of problems. I don't see I don't see what the end is going to be on all of this, and I definitely don't want to get political as far as all that goes. But it's a major trouble for us. These big mega farms, like in Comayagua, things like that, they've always been a problem because the young guys like to travel. They like to go to different regions. So they'll go to Comayagua one year and pick there for 3 months, and then they'll go to Esperanza or they'll go to Copan, and they'll, they do these at these mega farms. We're actually having a set up this year where we can do that. The socialist state of Nicaragua right now, we're going to be able to get people that want to cross the border, and they could legally cross the border and come here and work for us, because anywhere in the CA5, Salvador, Nicaragua, Honduras, and Costa Rica, any of those areas, they can travel freely throughout those 5 countries. And so they can come over here and work for us. So that's what we're having to do this year. We're going to make living quarters for the guys. We're building 2 showers and 2 bathrooms. We're going to build them a kitchen, and we're building just a big pavilion where they can hang out when they're not working. We're running electricity, Wi-Fi down there, and it's about 800 to 1,000 feet from the last building in the line here. So we'll be able to boost the power enough to get them down there, and then we'll hire the cable company to come out and run fiber optic down there. And so, because the young guys all have smartphones and they want to be able to do internet. And so, and we'll pay them, and we'll pay a cook to come in, or maybe some of them can bring a couple. If we had 2 wives down there, they could take care of all that. But, somebody's got to wash their clothes and stuff like that. And there's only so much we can provide, but we'll provide them 2 meals a day, which in a lot of places, they only eat 2 meals a day. Anna was saying that her family eats 2, but they've been talking about doing 3. And so, but that's very common to eat 2 meals a day. And we do beans and rice, and then rice and beans. It was supposed to be a joke, but I yawned. But one of the biggest concerns of the local people that they were talking about today was the fact that these buses are from other countries, and they're driving through here and have literally run over 4 people. And I'm not talking about driving fast. I'm talking about driving insanely fast. If you guys look back a couple months on one of my Instagrams, my camera just was setting in I tried to see if I could set it up in the dash and have like a dash cam or whatever. And I turned it on. And so I started out, and it's just pure fog. I've got on all my fog lights, and I pull into and made a right turn into the right lane. And as soon as I did, the traffic coming towards me is down a hill and on a blind curve. And there's 2 cars passing each other, one of them being in my lane. But I was slow enough and hadn't gotten far enough in. I didn't hit anybody. And they just kept on going. But they both running their high beams in the fog and passing each other, just driving like crazy. So people get run over. But the fact that 4 people have gotten killed in the last few months, 8 people gotten killed in the last few months, and 4 of those 8s were hit by the migrant buses and that's just in our area. It's just in this little 20-mile stretch. And granted, a lot of rural area out here, so there's not like a town every 5 feet or anything. But there's quite a few towns. But just odds are crazy. And so, I wasn't fully in the conversation. I was listening to a lot of it. But to me, that just sounded insane. 50% of the deaths, motorcycle deaths in my area in the last few months, half of those were done by migrant buses. And so my guys' perspective has changed so much, because they used to pick their little bits of coffee, throw it into a bag, throw it in the back of the truck. They weighed it, got one price for it. That's it. And now we've got Bill buying San Diego's coffee and people buying Anna's coffee. I think Troy Yard's buying Anna's coffee. That's TNT Roasters. Bill is Billy's Bean Barn, buying San Diego's. I'm buying Pedro's. I'm buying Bajidio's. what's really been funny is the dynamic, how it's changed to where definitely Bahidio has more of a socialistic worker mindset. And he's always worried about, am I paying the workers enough? And thinking, well, it's not fair to do this. And I'm like, well, brother, life ain't fair. I can tell you that. So let's put that behind us. But he got mad one time, but not mad, but he was really concerned that I gave some people a raise and not others. It's like, well, you're going to pay Pedro and Santiago more, aren't you going to pay these other guys more? I'm like, no, because they've been with me longer. I can depend on them. They're better workers. I said, so I'm gonna pay them more. They're like, well, you need to pay everybody the same. I'm like, no, I'm not going to. He has a barber shop. He charges rich people more money than he does poor people. I'm like, well, how is that fair? He's like, well, they can afford to pay more. I'm like, yeah, but you're doing the same service. So why should one pay more? If these guys in the farm aren't working the same, they shouldn't get paid the same. And you got a guy that's late all the time. I'm not going to pay him the same as I am the guy that's 10 minutes early every day. So but to watch them have conversations about, I can't get workers to pick at my farm and things like that. They used to be my workers, and they used to be the ones I tried to get to show up every day. And they're like, well, there was something, I had to do, so I didn't come in yesterday. And now they're the ones that are all, it is funny to me. It really is funny. And I sort of enjoy it. Well, you see what I was, see why I was stressed, see why I got mad, because they call me Bravo, which means angry. And I said, no, I'm just not angry. I'm frustrated to the point where I do get mad. I threw a clipboard today and broke it. But yeah, I mean, to see how the tables have been turned. And now they're all having to worry about finding workers. And I think it's hilarious that, I said, you don't think this is funny that, you guys used to, and especially Santos, he was the world's worst about not showing up for a day or two, no, just shows up on Thursday and everything's fine. And, and I'm like, we had planned on doing some stuff on Wednesday and Tuesday and you didn't come in. Well, I need to do this. And I'm like, well, your phone's not broken, is it? Well, it didn't have minutes on it. But, I said, well, when you need a loan, you always find minutes to give me a call and ask for a loan, or you need my truck or something like that. You're able to get that done. But they're just very laid back. And it's really hilarious to watch how the tides have turned on them and to watch them have more of a business mindset. And Anna's worried about what's going to happen, with no workers. And I think Bahidio has tried twice to get to the U.S. The last time he made it all the way to the U.S.-Mexican border. And he was doing something he wasn't supposed to. The police caught him, and they're not allowed to be in Mexico. And so the Mexican police took him back to Guatemala and put him over the border there. So he never actually got the chance to cross, which is a blessing because it really ruins a lot of families a lot of times when they go to the States and either don't come back or, it's easy to start a new life. And I know I had one of my workers got married one time to this girl that she'd been on a bunch of mission trips to Honduras. And then he was from Mexico and he was illegal in the United States. And she came in as my translator. And then they end up, next thing you know, they're dating. And the next thing you know, they got married. And I knew the guy, and, she kept it this big secret. And so they get married one weekend, and next thing you know, she's taken off with my farm boss, and they moved to Nashville. And I know for a fact the guy had a wife and kids, back in Mexico. And he just sort of, I don't know what he did. He could have still supported them, but he just never went back. They're still married, still live in Nashville. But, I know that Bahidio, he had 4 kids and was going to leave and go to the United States and work. He said, I was just going to stay about 10 years until I had enough money. And then, I'm like, well, 10 years, man, your family doesn't even know you. And more than likely people move on. If you don't show up for 10 years, your wife's liable to start looking after 6 months or so. I don't know. But yeah, it was just a really unique conversation. And I don't know what the end result of all of this is going to be. I try not to watch all the crap because everybody's lying on everybody and everybody blames everything on everybody else when you start getting politicians involved in it. But I wanted to, I've had people ask a lot of questions, and I'm hesitant to talk about anything that's slightly political. But I did decide that, after that, I heard that conversation last night, and a couple people more have asked the last few weeks. I just decided, well, I'm just going to talk about it a little bit and talk about how it's affecting our farm, our workers' farms, and things like that. And it is a big thing, once the amount of money that people can live on, because some of these people are really poor, the amount of money they can live on, a guy could be in the United States and send back $100 a week. And these people can live pretty well on $100 a week. And then they have that inkling to, why do I want to work? I'm making twice what I used to make just sitting here. So they just don't work. And the same thing, when their families get real good jobs. One of the families in Florida, I noticed all the kids had smartphones this year, and they put a chain link fence around the house, and they got a new bathroom and stuff like that. And then there were 7 or 8 people came out of the house. Monday, there was 2. Today, there was none that were willing to work. And so I asked the kid that was riding with me, I said, well, how do they afford all this if they don't work? And they said, well, two of them family members joined the military. And so now they make like $600 or $700 a month in the military, and there's 2 of them. So you're talking about $1,200 or $1,400 a month. He said, well, they send money home every month to their family, and now the family doesn't really have to work, and they all have smartphones and things like that. And I went into a house the other day, an adobe house, dirt floor, pretty shabby house. And I look on the wall, and there's a freaking Wi-Fi router on the wall, and they're paying $30-something a month for Wi-Fi. And so they've got fiber internet run into their house. And so they've got internet, and they had a television, stuff like that in there, and a big stereo, stuff like that. So yeah, it's surprising what people will spend their money on, and I'm not saying that I don't blow money on stuff too, but it's been very interesting to see what they spend their money on when they have it. But it's really hurting the industries around here, not having these workers here anymore. So we're actually looking we've got some guys coming out on Saturday that are big organic guys. They're the Dwyers. If you'll go back about 3 weeks, they were here and we did a podcast with them talking mainly about organics, but they're coming out. They're either going to bring me sprouts or seeds, or we're going to start planting a lot of basil. We've got a spot of land that we're going to clear, and I'm going to plant about 2 or 3 acres of bananas. And once we get them laid out, we're going to start we're going to start staking the ground and start building an irrigation system. So hopefully within 6 months, we're going to have probably about 1,800 banana plants that are irrigated. And so we're going to try a micro lot of that. We're going to try growing basil, ginger root. We're having to look for things that we can grow. We're already growing cardamom, and that's an off season. So after we get through picking coffee, we'll start picking the cardamom. So same thing with the ginger root is off season from the coffee. Bananas, you have to control them, but it takes about 9 to 10 months for a banana plant to grow and produce a thing of bananas, and then it dies. So basically, if you start out on day 1, you plant the bananas, and then in 10 months they have bananas. You cut everything down, clear it, and then go back in 2 months and plant more bananas. So you can have a little more controlled crop. We can control a little bit about when the harvest is so that we utilize the few workers that we have. So it means getting out of coffee a little more and getting into something that will actually support the farm. Bill, if you've logged on, if you chime in, or if anybody has any questions, there's anybody watching has any questions, I won't call your name out if it's anything political. And I definitely don't judge anybody for their political views or anything like that, because there's definitely points of my life where I don't want to vote for anybody. I don't care red, blue, or whoever, whatever color their party is. I get sick of all of them. And then seeing them down here, you get sick of them really quick. But if anybody has any questions or any comments, or, if you don't like what I'm saying, you're not going to hurt my feelings. It's been a very hard month or so that I've been thinking about doing this podcast. I'm glad I did it. I'm glad I sort of was able to answer some questions. I hope everybody that's asked the questions will be able to see the answers, or maybe understand a little bit more about why we don't want to talk about it. And definitely, I'm not very vocal about it here, because there was a guy that met us in the road last year, and he just looked at me, and I looked over at him, and he's like flipped me off and said, "F Trump." How do you know I didn't vote for Biden? It was just because I was from America. He wanted to say that. You hardly go out and about town when you don't talk to somebody that's been deported. They'll quickly tell you, well, I went there and they call it mojado, and I got sent back. Or there's a guy that owns a mini market, and he said, yeah, we've got our store started here, and I got a trucking business started. And then we got ready to come back. We just went and I turned myself into ICE, and then they flew me back. And so, he paid to be snuck in, but when they get ready to go home, they can just hop on a plane and go home. He said, yeah, I was in detention for about 3 days, and said, my son will be flying back because he has dual citizenship, because he was born in the U.S. And so he'll be able to buy a ticket and fly back. He said after he does, then my wife's going to turn herself into ICE, and then she'll fly back, or the government will fly her back. You can't love the abuse, that the system gets, that they can just, and just turn themselves in. So that's about all I'm going to say about that. But there's no shame in getting deported. They just joke about it. And, some of the guys are like, oh, I've been 4 or 5 times. And, if I get ready to come back for a few months, I'll turn myself in and, come back. And then, it's $3,500 to get back to Mexico and stuff like that. And now it's not even that. Now it's hundreds of dollars. You just have to make it there and walk across the border. And so they can get flown back whenever they want, and they can cross the border whenever they want. So they'll come here and take a vacation for a month or 2, and then go back and work. So it's, there's an opportunity there that's not here. So what we're trying to do here is provide opportunities here to keep that family dynamic together, because I think that's extremely important. To keep the family together and to give them some kind of opportunity here. So that's one of the reasons that we're asking you guys a lot of time for support to help buy a corn grinder for somebody so they can start a business here, stay with their family, improve their lives, keep their kids in school, things like that. So that's the whole point of what we do. And we've helped them buy farms and get farms planted and stuff like that. So, but that's all I have to say about that. Unless some of you guys will ask me a question, I'll get back to it. Still got my favorite coffee cup. I found a couple more of them the other day, and so I'm going to bring some back. Yep, that's about all that I was supposed to cover tonight. So I'm going to let you guys get back. I know it's getting late. It is 20 till 10. So I'm going to wrap it up. But we just need you guys to share it, like it, follow it, all the little things you can do. Subscribe to us on YouTube. The YouTube channel has been growing a little bit. The Facebook page, I think we got 40 new people this last month. Still trying to hit 500 on Instagram. But I got up to 490, and then I lost 2 people. So I made somebody mad, I guess. But If I make you mad, I'm sorry. We'll talk about it. I think they're breaking out some new green coffee on Monday. Noah was there roasting today, so there's some fresh roasted coffee if any of you guys want fresh roasted. I think they're bringing out another bag of Ica 2 and a bag of Bourbon on Monday. And so there'll be some new green coffee for sale. And then one day next week, they're going to roast a little bit more Bourbon, and they're going to have another bag of natural is going to get opened up. So I'm not sure what variety the natural will be. So if any of you guys are roasting green, send me a PM and I'll try to get the information on what's going to be available. But yeah, if you guys could share us on some of these, the green sites, just share us anywhere you think about. Every little bit helps. I appreciate it. We're going to start doing some shout outs for a little bit of fundraising money for the project. It's about $1,000 in the hole right now. And we're getting the walls up. So we're going to have to buy a couple windows and a door and put a roof on within the next couple of weeks. And we'll have the children's classroom ready for the kids to start using. There's too many kids in the church right now in that one class. So they're getting into trouble using the library. So we're building a children's classroom. So we started, got the hiccups. Started last Wednesday, working on the walls again. Friday, they'll have the walls finished and we'll do a big band tying all the walls together. We'll pour the columns. And then after that, we're going to need to start working on the roof. So if anybody's got a Sunday school or just got a extra couple $1,000 you're not doing anything with, let us know. We're trying to get some money rounded up for a security system, and we're going to have to put bars on the windows. Somebody broke in last week and stole a few things. And so we're going to have to address that as well. Oh, no, Wild Bill's in the house. And he's even coming on screen to show how pretty he is.
Sorry, I missed everything.
No, that's all right, man. We didn't say anything. I talked about the immigration buses. You'll have to go back and watch it. I've had a lot of questions about people were asking, different questions about about everything.
Yeah.
I've talked to probably 20 different farmers here lately. It's getting ridiculous. And the guys were in here. We were just eating snacks the other day, and they started talking about two of them have had kids that had like a motorcycle accident in the last month, just like run into each other. But they were saying that within the last 3 months or so, 8 people have gotten killed from car and motorcycle accidents. But 4 of those 8 people were hit by the migrant buses.
Oh.
The migrant buses hit 2 people and killed them one day, and then 2 other buses both hit 1 person and killed them. And so it just seemed astronomical to me that 8 people got killed in our little area in the last few months, and half of those were hit by the migrant buses. And man, I mean, and I met 4 of them today driving from Planis to here, which is like 8-minute drive. I met 4 migrant buses. And Anna was talking about the people were black and didn't speak English or Spanish. When they get, there's the town named Planis right up the road from us is the only legal, there's only a couple places the bus can stop and let people get off, use the bathroom and all that kind of stuff. The government has mandated you can stop here, here, and here. But otherwise, you're illegal in this country, and they don't permit people being here illegally. And so, but they're wanting them to go through the country, and they want to make it a quick process as possible. And so they allow them to, it's like a 9-hour drive to drive from El Paraiso in Danlí by the Nicaraguan border into the El Salvadoran border. It takes about 9 or 10 hours to drive it. And so
where are these guys coming from anyway?
Well, I'm just guessing, but she said it had real short, curly black hair, and they were black, in which everybody here is brown, except for me. And and so I'm just assuming somewhere in Africa. But then a couple months ago, we have lots of little meetings where there's a couple of 3-liter Pepsis and about 20 bags of chips involved. And we were having a meeting, and Pedro was describing how poor the people were. And I said earlier, Pedro is super poor, 5th grade education, doesn't own a smartphone, doesn't know how to use a computer, doesn't have a television in his house. He is just a big-hearted, simple guy, just a basic old guy that everybody likes. So he's not judging anybody. He's not making fun of anybody, not a racial bone in his body. He was telling me how poor these people were. And he said, Don Ashley, they're so poor they couldn't afford hats. And it was cold and raining. He said they just wrapped towels on their heads to keep their head warm. And said they couldn't even afford clothes. So they were just wearing bed sheets.
Wow.
And there was 2 buses full of them. And said they all spoke a language that I'd never heard. Said it just sounded like gibberish. And it said, and so that's how he described them. So
Wow.
we could just take a wild guess where they came from, So it could have been India, could have been Middle Eastern, could have been any of those things, but they weren't.
That many of them to make it over an ocean to where you're at.
Yeah.
That surprises me.
The other problem is if I were going to the United States and I were coming through Honduras, just like people that bring their cars from the United States, you'll see a lot of little caravans with like a semi beat up car pulling a wrecked car. Well, they've got little caravans. They're buying these wrecked cars. They'll take them to Honduras, fix them, and resell them. It's a business.
Okay.
They're going to take the shortest path. They're going to go straight up the main big nice highway into Guatemala. Right. Anybody that's crossing what's called the Frontera Ilegal is passing our house. They're going to the illegal border crossing. And so that's where you bring contraband across, things like that. So if those buses are coming through this port, there's a reason why they don't want to go through an immigration point, or they don't want to go through, And so that worries me more than anything. But the main thing that's killing us is so many people have left going to the United States. We don't have anybody picking coffee. I think there was 18 or 20 people here today, and I need 125.
Wow.
Wow. Monday we had 20. Yesterday I had 30. And so it'll take me 3 weeks for this next picking. And that kills me economically. It costs me so much more because I'm having to drive that big old truck out to the field, whether it's got 100 pounds in it or 10,000 pounds in it. Right. You still got to make those trips, and you still got to dry it. I got to pay that guy a big fee to live out there 24 hours a day for the next 3 weeks. And it takes it's really difficult because then you have a whole bunch of little tiny lots. So I think we're already on lot 24. And so last year we had 60 lots for the entire year. And so already we're at 24, and so we'll probably have 80 or 90 lots. So it's just crazy, and every farmer I talk to, it's the same thing. We can't find anybody to pick our coffee. We can't, so I don't know what to do, and so many people don't want to work because now they've got family in the U.S. sending them money.
Right.
So now they're getting $100, $200 a week coming in from kids working in the U.S., and they're living like kings according to this standard. That's 4, 5, 6 times what a guy would make here. Right. So now he's got his kids sending them that much money, and they don't want to work anymore. They want to buy smartphones, get internet and a plasma TV, and just hang out. So you see people dress better. You go by houses now, and you see that blue glow in the house where they got a TV now, where used to nobody around here had TVs. And so it definitely changes, but it's not like the money is going into this community and doing a lot of good for the community. You just got certain families just getting rich and just buying lavish stuff. This family across from us has got 2 Range Rovers and a Rubicon in their yard. And, the guy never drove in his life, and now he had to build a driveway because his kids bought him a Rubicon. And so basically all he does is drive to church and back, which is they used to walk to that church.
But he's got 3 vehicles. He gets to choose which one to take, and I mean, that's crazy.
Well, the 2 Range Rovers are his kids, and so
okay.
he went ahead and bought them in the States and had them shipped up here, and so they just sort of stay parked. And when the kids get ready to come back, they'll sit on all that money, hopefully, and when they come back, they'll have tens of thousands of dollars or something, and they'll either be able to start a business or, buy a farm or something like that. And then, because the most of them don't necessarily want to go to the United States to live forever. If they could bank 50 grand and come back here, when I first came, that would have been the smart thing for me to do, was just build a bunch of big buildings and start a couple of businesses. And, that's where the money's at. It ain't in coffee, because we're clearing some lots after harvest this year. We're going to cut down a bunch of coffee and plant bananas.
Oh, wow.
We're going to plant more basil. We're going to plant basil. We're going to plant more cardamom. We're going to plant another probably 2,000 banana trees. And then we're
Now,
going to
is that for local sales? I'm going to guess, right? Or do you make good money off the local place?
I've got this NQR. It's an Isuzu cab over truck. And so we'll probably start taking them directly to port and selling them at port.
Okay.
There's some places you go and they start pulling bananas off your truck and they grade them. And we've already started growing Baileys and Minimals. Those are good varieties of bananas that are sold in the United States. And because I don't have enough people to pick my coffee. So we're building a worker house. We're building bathrooms, kitchen, a big pavilion to hang out. We're running electricity and Wi-Fi down there. It's about 1,000 feet into the farm. And we're going to make living quarters for about 25 guys. And so next harvest, we're going to try to bring in 25 Nicaraguans to help us pick the coffee.
Yeah.
And they'll come down here and stay for 3 months. And then they'll go back to Nicaragua. And so we don't know what other option to do, but we're going to build a tiny we'll build 1 room for hopefully 2 husbands and 2 wives, because somebody's got to do the cooking and cleaning. And then the rest will just be basically single men's rooms, with just triple high bunk beds. And, they don't care. They're here for the money. So they don't mind living in a tight quarters as long as they got some of the amenities, they've got Wi-Fi, electricity, and things like that. And so we're going to try that, but we're going to have to start switching some of our crops to where there's only X amount of workers here. And so, we're going to try to utilize the amount of workers that we have, and then we'll find crops that are picked at other times that the coffee's not. And so we'll be able to, utilize that. So you can only do what you can do. And so, we'll cut out a lot of our green sales, and then the customers that we have now, we'll keep supplying them with green coffee. But already some people have asked about, getting prices on green coffee. And so we're just not going to take on any more customers, because the only way to stay afloat is to do roasted coffee.
Yeah.
And we're going to focus more on the roasted coffee, and then try to find some crops that, are off season from the coffee. The basil, there's a bug that attacks the coffee beans. It's called a broca, and they don't like the smell of basil. And so basil is an organic deterrent to the bugs. I had 2 guys on here. They were brothers. They were Dwyer brothers, and they're big into organics, and they grow vegetables and coffee. And so
I've seen them. I think I saw that episode.
Yeah, we did. I interviewed them here in the house in Honduras. And so I think they're going to be able to come up Saturday, and I'm hoping they can help me get some basil started in my greenhouses so that we can plant some throughout the farm. But then I want to, we're checking with eCafe, the government organization that gives us permission to export. They let me send the coffee cherry tea with my coffee. And so I'm going to see if they'll let me ship basil and ginger root. The ginger root's a little more sketchy, but the basil I don't think they'll have a problem with. But the ginger root is picked at a different season. And so we're checking into just anything that we can grow that is off season from coffee.
Now, is that something that you can sell at the port also, like with the bananas?
I'm not sure. With the cardamom, we'll send it over the border into Guatemala, and then we'll bring some into the States. The coffee cherry tea, we'll only sell it in the States. Bananas, we'll sell at the port. The basil, we'll just have to bring some in and see if there's a market for it in the United States. If it is, then we'll try to do that. But right now, we're just trying to see what we can do to, to combat everybody leaving. There's just not a lot of people here to pick coffee. Yeah. And so we're just.
Is your family still down there?
Do what?
Is your family still there?
Yeah, everybody's still here.
Yeah.
I think Jonathan flies out on Wednesday. And then on the 28th, a week later, Julia's going to fly out. Okay. And then Eli and I are supposed to be here till either March the 12th or March the 16th.
Yeah.
But as slow as harvest is going, I think we may be here all of March. Mama's not going to be real happy about it. I hope she's not watching. But or she might take them home with her now. But that's just what we're looking at this year. Maybe we'll be able to fly out on the 25th or something, but with the picking starting Monday, it's going to take at least 2 weeks to pick, and then we wait 2 more weeks and we pick again. If that takes another 2 weeks, then we're going to be at the end of March. So it's one of those, it is what it is kind of things, but not having anybody that can drive, and I'm ready to fire half the guys that are here now. They've been driving me crazy. And so, especially San Diego. Dang it, San Diego, his brother came up to me, Pedro came up to me and wanted to buy 6 bags of fertilizer on credit, which we do all the time. And I've already bought it and paid for it, so it's not a big deal. And so we go into the bodega to see what the options are. And I look, and there's like 60 bags of fertilizer in there. And fertilizer doesn't last that long in our climate. And so I just said, well, I'll just, how many do you need? And he said, I need 6. And so I said, well, how many does San Diego need? And he said, I think 8. So I just gave him the fertilizer. And then when it came time to pick, San Diego went and picked for another farmer.
My God.
He's been picking for another guy for the last 3 weeks, took his kids with him, took Pedro's kids with him, and they've been gone for the last 3 weeks picking coffee. And then he came back on Sunday, and then he's picking coffee in his farm. And so
well, maybe Bill won't be buying any of Santiago's coffee this year. No, he's going to treat my friend Ashley like that.
No, I'm hoping that I can go pick up his coffee on Thursday, the coffee that he's been picking. And so, no, I told him, I said, my word's my word. I'm trying to be an example. I said, I said I'd buy your coffee because I was mad at Bahidio the other day because he did something stupid. And I told him exactly what I wanted him to do. And then he did what he wanted to do instead. And I got mad at him. Yeah, I was mad. And so then he sold his coffee to the mill instead of selling it to me. I'm like, well, you didn't hurt me one bit, because you're the one that's just sold your coffee for a third of what it would have brought in the States. And so, because I could buy it in Uba and pay him a little more, but instead I process it, we help them dry it, and then I buy it at green value according to what it cups.
Right.
So he's making 3 times what he'd make selling it to me in cherry, And so I said, you only hurt yourself. I said, my life's going to go on just fine. I said, except for the people that are used to buying your coffee, they're not going to have enough to last through the year. But I said, they're my customers and they'll buy another one of my coffees and you just want to get the money, And so I think he's coming around today, but he got mad at me, gave me the keys back. And so it's been a big pain in the butt the last 10 days, that the fact that I can't just tell him, go do this, because now he doesn't have keys. So now he doesn't want the responsibility of doing anything, but he's still drawing the pay of a farm boss. So Santos and Anna have come to me and said, it's not fair that he's not taking any of the responsibility and he's still making the same as I make. And I said, no, but I said, I don't want him to quit before harvest. So we had a heart-to-heart the other day. And so we're going to have another one after harvest. But, I need him here. And he's he's almost, he's invaluable to me. And I like the guy. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Ashley, you froze. You still there? Ladies and gentlemen, if you're watching this, I think we might be having a problem with Ashley's feed.
Somebody else made peanuts covered in chocolate. Can you hear me now?
I hear you now. It's just like it just jumped forward in the future.
Oh, I went in there and they had attacked the banana bread, but there was all the bottom pieces and the crumbs. So I just threw the little bits of all the different trays full of goodies. I threw them in here, and I made me a thing of, well, you can't see with my green screen. I made me a thermos full of Anna Cafe 14.
Okay.
And so I've been really liking that. I'll try to get some clean by next week and send it home with Julia and let her shoot some over there to you. But I've enjoyed it. I've been drinking it quite a bit. And then my Marciessa's rocking it again this year. So I've been drinking it. But
that's some great coffee. I'm telling you what, I love that Marciessa. That's some great coffee.
And the Maro Hipe, I've been drinking that. So I'm going to enter the Marciessa and the Perinema in the competition this year and see what happens. But because they're wanting to put me, if I do the Maro Hipe, they're wanting to put me into an exotic category. And last year, the exotic category 15th place was a 91.
Holy crap!
And so I can't compete with that.
That's
so I'm not even going to put that one in. I'm just going to put two of my others and stay in the regular category. Because this year there was 2023, there was 88 farmers that submitted. I think you could do up to 2 samples each. And so out of that, we won 4th place. So I had a real good honey processed Perinema. And so I want to shoot that over to them and see what they think of that. And then the Marciessa too. But yeah, we just I think there was 4,700 pounds of Marciessa picked Monday, and then almost 600 pounds picked yesterday.
Wow.
So we've been fermenting it. Today we let it out. The weather was bad, but we went ahead and put it on the patio to let it breathe and cool down so it stopped fermenting. But we fermented it for 36 hours. And then tomorrow morning we're taking it out to Yano and we'll put it out and start drying it. So it'll hopefully it'll dry in about 5 days, according to what the weather is. But
well, I tell you, the red honey stuff is starting to go over a lot more with my customers at work. I figured the full natural was going to be, but the few people that have bought the full natural, they loved it. Don't get me wrong, but they're like, yeah, it's just a little too much, too fruity for me, just a little too fruity.
Me too.
So they back it down. And the cafe that I help out with, they now found. I call it Berry Beloved. I can't remember which one. I think it's the Ikatu. Was it the Ikatu red honey, if I remember right?
I did most of them both ways, so I'm not real sure.
Okay. I can't remember, and I don't have my bag up here where I'm at, but I call it Berry Beloved, and I gave them about 5 pounds of it last time, and they've gotten a ton of compliments on it. So I was like, well, there you go. We'll just do that one from now that on. So
Well, I'm pretty sure the last batch of EK2 that we just dried was red honey. And so
okay,
as the weather warms up, which it will here in the next couple of weeks, we'll start doing everything honey. And so hopefully that'll take care of itself. But it'll keep doing well. But yeah, I like the EK2, and it's a later crop, and so that works out really well for not having to worry about the weather and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, your video, by the way, with the motorcycle that come by you with no headlight and stuff, well, that was very scary. I didn't even. Let's just put it this way: the first time I watched it twice because I didn't read the inscription on it until after I saw it the first time, and then you said, "Oh," and then I noticed the motorcycle with no headlights right before I turned, and I literally went, "What motorcycle?" I didn't see a motorcycle. I had to go back and watch it the second time to see it. So.
Well, I was in the Dodge, and I had 30 people in there.
Yeah.
And so he just like driving down the road fast as he could. And man, it's a nightmare because you start slowing down to make that left turn, and they'll try to pass you. They'll like try to come around your left side and pass you just because you're slowing down. So I've got more lights I'm putting on for turn signals to just really make it pop. But I mean, I've got my hand out the window telling them to slow down. I'm hogging the center line, got my left turn signal on plenty in advance, and it never fails. They start coming around you. They're just like in this giant hurry to get somewhere. So it's fun to watch sometimes, as long as I don't run over somebody, then I'm good. You got somebody that needs some attention.
Come here. No, yeah, I retreated up to my bedroom and was laying on the bed, and Brielle come knocking on the door and then just busted her way through. And now she's demanding to be held up on the bed. So, come here. You want to say hi to Ashley? Come here. Come here. Yeah.
I don't know how much you talk to Dana. You remember Dana?
Yeah. I don't right offhand.
She's over in Texas.
Oh, Dana, yes. The one with the cafe.
Well, she's got a mobile coffee trailer. She's getting ready to open up a brick and mortar.
Okay.
And so I'm going to see about maybe getting the two of you connected, and maybe to see if you could do some roasting for her too.
Well, if it's out of state, I can't do it. So
I'll send you some bags that have a stamp on it. So we'll put our heads together. We'll get it figured out somehow. But I think that it would be a good dynamic to put you guys together, and see, especially with her working, with the downs groups and stuff, down groups and all that. She jumps on me when I put an S on downs. But yeah, I think that that's somebody
Emily would too, I think. So.
With. We'll figure if there's any kind of loophole or any legitimate way to do it. But
okay.
But yeah, I'd like for you to be a part of that if possible. But,
okay. Well, I'm gonna have to say goodnight because Emily needs a room. So
I am too, and the dog's pacing, so she's either going to pee in the floor or I'm going to open the door. All right, man. Well, thanks for jumping on. Hey, let's figure a time next week where you got some time, and let's do something together. Something, whether it's right or wrong or funny or not. Get on there together, and we'll both get on our back porch and see who wins. But
there you go. All right, then.
All right, man. Hey, thanks for coming on. We'll talk to you soon.
You betcha. We'll talk to you later. See you later.
All right, good night.